no matter what path you choose to walk, and whether you believe or not, you can be certain that a fairy is watching.
Hello, fairy finders and fairy seekers. Welcome to FaerieQuest and another episode of Real Fairies in Real Photos. Or are they? What we're looking at today is a few of the photos from the Cottingly Fairy Hoax. And these photos come from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's book, The Coming of Fairies. And these photographs are not exactly the highest quality. The photographs themselves were taken in 1917, and the book was published in 1922. So we've got about 5 years worth of things happening with these photos. So I'm doing the best that I can to see if I can find any fairies in some of these photos. Now, the number of photos there were in the book were, let me see here, wrong one, Coming of Fairies, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and I will be showing you 4 of them, I believe. So this photo here on the left on the thumbnail and this photo on the right, I was not able to find fairies in them other than these false or fake fairies that the girls took photos of. The foliage just wasn't clear enough. And I know that there are pictures online that are clearer than this, but I really wanted to use the ones from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's book. Okay, so let's start with the first photo that's in the book. It's actually opposite the title page. And this is Mr. E.L. Gardner. He's member of the executive committee of the Theosophical Society in England. And he was a large part of trying to prove or disprove the authenticity of these photographs the girls claim to have taken. So we are looking at his photo first because I did actually find someone in his photo. So over here we can see over his shoulder there is an image here of a person. It looks like an elderly woman, and I've made her a little bit larger here for you, letting you know that this is still the same photograph. And then I've isolated her. The larger it is, because of the quality of the photos, the harder it is to see, which is why I decided to do this with you looking at my computer rather than just the normal frames that I would do on a video. So here she is, and it almost looks as though she is sitting behind something. I can't be absolutely sure. I kind of have an idea of what this looks like to me, but I don't want to say she's using a walker because she would be taller than this. But I feel like she maybe is sitting in a wheelchair perhaps, and there's something in front of her. But anyway, we can see that she has a hair accessory of some sort here. And her hair is around this, and you can look at the smaller picture here and see probably a little bit more of her hair. Depends on what you're looking at this video on. If it's a computer, you'll be able to see it better. If it's a phone, not so sure. Anyway, so we have an eye, here's her nose, here's her mouth, her chin, and then we have feet down here. Now, whether this is her feet or the feet of something that's in front of her, I don't know. Now, I also believe that she's wearing glasses. At least it looks like it in this one, but I could be mistaken. Again, the quality of the photos after 5 years, and plus these are it came from a camera called a Midge that requires plates. So it was pretty old. So these have gone through quite a bit. But anyway, there is the first one. And this may be somebody that E.L. Gardner knew. Perhaps it was his grandmother, and she happened to show up in the picture. Just a guess. So then we have this second picture here, page 32 of the book. And this is Elsie and the Gnome, is what they called this. And it's a photograph taken by Frances. Obviously, this is Elsie. Fairly bright day in September 1917. The Midge camera. Distance 8 feet. Time 1/50th of a second. The original negative has been tested, enlarged, and analyzed in the same exhaustive manner as A. And when they say A, they labeled these pictures A, B, C, D, E, and created a small map in the book. This plate was badly underexposed. Elsie was playing with the gnome and beckoning it to come onto her knee. And if you don't know the story of this, there is a Antique Roadshow program that's on YouTube that was really fun to watch because it was actually, I believe, Elsie and her granddaughter have the original photographs that were taken, and between the Antique Roadshow expert and Elsie, the story came out again. So that was a lot of fun to watch. So let's see what fairies we find in here. And again, down in the left-hand corner, I'm giving you part of the picture so that you know that I'm looking at the same picture, because since the fairies are down in this left-hand corner, if I just isolated them, you wouldn't even know it was the same picture. So here we are, and there are two of them here. There's one here and one here. So let's get a little larger, and I've done it again so you can see her dress here and here. So this first one, we have a pointed hat, we have an ear, which I didn't label, face with glasses right here, and this one seems to be standing inside of something. It's almost not quite a square. I mean, it is here, almost like one of those balloon baskets is what it reminds me of. But anyway, the other one is a little guy right here, and he is wearing a crown, or what looks like a crown. We can see one eye, and there's the other eye, but it's also hidden behind the shield. Here's a nose, and then the bottom part of his face. The shield is right here, this dark area. We can see a foot with a couple of toes. I'm pretty sure there's another toe back here, but it's too dark to see. And I do believe this is either a sword or a wand of some sort, spear, wand. So we had two, and this one is quite a bit larger. We can also see, you know, inside this basket, I'm just going to call it a basket, we do have a shoulder and part of an arm and part of the upper body. And then, of course, we have the head and the hat. So that was fun to find in there. Moving on to the next picture. It is the most famous picture, I think, of the hoax, the Cottingly Fairy Hoax. And this one is on page 49 of the book. It says, Francis and the Fairies. Photograph taken by Elsie. Bright sunny day in July 1917. The Midge camera. Distance 4 feet. Time 1/50th of a second. The original negative is asserted by expert photographers to bear not the slightest trace of combination work, retouching, or anything whatever to mark it as other than a perfectly straight single exposure photograph taken in the open air under natural conditions. The negative is sufficiently, indeed, somewhat overexposed. The waterfall and rocks are about 20 feet behind Francis, who is standing against the bank of the beck. A fifth fairy may be seen between and behind the two on the right. The coloring of the fairies is described by the girls as being a very pale pink, green, lavender, and mauve, most marked in the wings and fading to almost pure white in the limbs and drapery. Each fairy has its own special color. Now, obviously, the book was done in black and white. There is no color in these fairies whatsoever, and there's not a lot of definition in them either. And when I looked at some of the pictures online, I was finding ones that were much better than these, and I don't know if they've been retouched with Photoshop or, you know, what's happened to them. They were definitely in better shape than this photograph, but I still found some fairies within this photograph, so we're going to take a look at that. So here we have off to the right hand side, right over here, we have a fairy sitting right here, looking at these fake fairies. And these are cardboard cutouts on hairpins, by the way. That's how they did it. But here he is. I've made him a little bit larger here, and I've made him larger and labeled him here. I don't know if this here is something or not, so I did not label it. But we can see an eye, a nose. So there's his face. He has a pointed ear, which is rather dark. A little difficult to see, but it's there. And then his shoulder and whatever he's wearing. And he's kind of laid back, very comfortably, very relaxed, laid back. Here's his back, and here's an arm and a hand here. And keeping in mind, we're kind of a distance away, and he has formed himself somewhat out of light is the way that it looks. But again, these photos are very, very old. So that's the first fairy in this one. The second one is up in the corner. If you look at the whole thing, it's up here. And this is the whole picture, okay, right here. This one is up in the corner, and there's actually two of them here. So let's go back, and I'm showing you up here in the corner what we have here, and I'll show you the face first. And I don't know if this is a relative of this girl or the one who is taking the picture, but the face really stands out over in this side. When it's blown up like this, it's very skewed. So I'm hoping that you will be able to see it. But we have an eye with a pupil here, and the other eye is here. And we have the nose, and the nose is kind of highlighted here with some light spots. And the face comes down like this. One of the arrows is, or two of the arrows is kind of in the way. Are kind of in the way. Two of the arrows are kind of in the way. Anyway, here's the chin, and we have the mouth, and you can see the lip here of one. So that is a very interesting face to have within this photo. And since it's a plate, I don't know, I don't believe that plates can be reused for cameras like this. I don't know for sure. But at any rate, this is what we have here. And then we have this too. And I'm really not sure what to make of this. At first I thought it was like a fairy with a high-necked collar, but then I'm seeing a little building here. Almost like a barn in a way, with the doorway on this side. So I'm not really sure what this is. And when I went to look at another photograph of this picture, to me this looked like a water splat from maybe the waterfall, but they were 20 feet away according to this picture. So I'm not sure if that could happen or not. But anyway, make of this what you will. But I do see a building in the background. But the face, this face, there is no mistaking this. And it used to be back in the time of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, they did the spiritualist photographs, and I actually have a couple of postcards that show images of deceased loved ones in like the trunks of trees from a very famous place, which the name I cannot remember now, but if I can find those, I will share them. I may have actually shared them in a video, so if I can find that, I will link it below. So let's move on to the last photo here that I'm going to share. And this one was on page 128 in the book. And this is just a view of the beck in 1921, it says. Now remember, the pictures were taken in 1917. And here are the girls sitting up on the beck. And there are actually 3 fairies that I found in this photograph that I could see fairly clearly. The first one is down here. And when we look at him a little bit larger, we see the tip of his hat. Okay, and he has a hat that's kind of like a conical witch's hat. There's a brim across here, and it looks like it kind of has a ribbon, but there's the point or the tip. We have an ear, and his hair comes a little bit down over the ear. We have his face with the eye here, the nose, and his mouth is here. And then we have a long robe, goes down to about here and over here. Okay, and the robe is kind of blurry looking, more so than the rest of him. And you can see that over in this picture over on the left too. And then we have his foot. There's one facing forward, and I guess they're both kind of facing forward. But anyway, this one is closer than this one. And it looks like he's wearing shoes. So that was the first fairy in this one. And then we have this one here. And again, this is one of those ones when you blow it up, it doesn't look as clear to me. It does in this one. But here's the first fairy. So this one's not very far away. So we have an eye and an eye. And here's the shape of the head. It almost looks like there's a feather or a piece of hair maybe that goes over the back here. And then we have an arm. And it looks like this one also has a shield. Now that may not be a shield, that's what I've called it. I'm not positive, but it's in front of this fairy. And then we can see one foot right here in the smaller picture. Here it just looks like a little blob of nothing. So that's the second fairy, and we can also see other faces in this one. There's one there, there's one there, but I wanted to give you the larger of them because they're hard to see on phones and they're just harder to see. So then the last photo is right below the girls. So we've got the first one I showed you, the second one I've showed you, and here's the third one. And this is the upper portion of a woman who I believe, now I did not label this, but I think this is her hand right here. And that she's extending her hand out in front of her and almost like she's pouring water or she's doing something. I'm almost half tempted to say this is another fairy, but I can't be for sure. But there's something coming from her hand. Okay, so she has a short haircut. Okay, it's up and around like this and comes across here in front. Okay, it looks like she has some curls in the short haircut. And that's why I've done hair, hair, hair all the way around so you can see. And then we have an eye here, we have an eye here, her nose is here, and it's got a light tip there, and here's her mouth, kind of in an O shape. And then the rest of her is really kind of hard to make out, but it is the upper portion of her body. And again, her hand extended towards us. It looks big here, but it doesn't look all that big over here. And I don't think this white area is part of her hand. I think it's just here, here, and here. And it's kind of, she's got her wrist bent and her fingers out straight and doing something with water. But she's very clear and she's actually very large in the picture. Look at her and the girls. And if I go back to the original picture, I'm not sure if you can see, but here she is and the girls are up above her. Her head is actually obviously bigger than theirs in this picture. So there is what I have. There may have been fairies in the other photos, but they were very hard for me to see or to pick out to be able to share with you. These I thought were some of the best ones, so I'm hoping you were able to see. The girls made those fairies out of cardboard and hairpins, but there were actually fairies in the photos. It's just nobody was looking at those. So I hope you had fun with this video, and I do have one more Cottingly Fairy video coming up for modern day. So you'll be having colored pictures in that one. Hope you stay tuned. Take care.